The Hebrews under Antiochus IV Epiphanes were, needless to say, not very happy with the situation. When it came to the point where they were being forced to sacrifice to pagan gods, it was only a matter of time before the situation erupted. And erupt it finally did. It did so at the hands of one family, a father and son, the father was being forced to do a sacrifice to the pagan gods. He finally decided he wouldn't put up with it anymore. He attacked and killed the guard who was trying to force him to sacrifice, and took his son with him and launched a rebellion against the Greek overlords. We call this revolt the Maccabean revolt, and it began in 167 BC. It was led by the father initially, but very quickly the leadership was taken over by his son. In Hebrew, he is famously called Yehuda ha-Maccabi. Sometimes you'll hear him called Judas Maccabeus. Same guy, just a different transliteration. Judah ha-Maccabi was, ha-Maccabi is not his name. Ha-Maccabi is a nickname. Maccabi in Hebrew means the hammer. And so Judah ha-Maccabi is named because of his, I guess, his personality and his authority. He did later change profession, and he became a rap singer by the same, no, he didn't do that. Judah ha-Maccabi, one other thing you should know about ha-Maccabi, if you go to Israel and you like to drink beer, there are two major beer brands that you might want to get. One is called Gold Star, and the other one is called ha-Maccabi. And so if you want to go to Israel, you can have ha-Maccabi. Apparently the Israelis have figured out a different way to get hammered. In any case, Judah ha-Maccabi led this revolt, and we call it the Maccabean revolt. Eventually he was successful. It was a sort of guerrilla warfare, and it was extraordinary that the Hebrews were able to overcome their Greek overlords. And ultimately, Antiochus Epiphanes had actually sacrificed a pig in the temple in Jerusalem, in the Holy of Holies. Judah ha-Maccabi went to the temple and underwent an 8-day purification ritual over the temple precinct, and thus purified it and restored it to Hebrew use. That 8-day purification ceremony was the first Hanukkah. And so we get the celebration of Hanukkah, which commemorates then the Maccabean revolt and the purification of the temple. One would think that the Hebrews at this point have their opportunity. They have been chafing under foreign rule for a number of years. They don't like it. They want to have their own independence. Now they have their own independence. Now is their great opportunity to make things right. Now is their great opportunity to make up for the mistakes of the monarchy of the past, to turn back to God, to fulfill the hopes of the people of Israel. And they don't. In fact, the resulting monarchy, independent monarchy of Israel, which we call the Hasmonean dynasty, is a complete disaster. They rule independently themselves for about 100 years, 167 to 163 BC, and almost immediately the Hasmonean dynasty becomes hopelessly corrupt, a big problem, and it's a sad chapter in Hebrew history. We know quite a bit about the Hasmonean dynasty and the Maccabean revolt, both from the Jewish historian Josephus and also from the Old Testament apocryphal books of 1st and 2nd Maccabees. In the mid-60s BC, the Hasmonean dynasty had become corrupt. There was some rivalry between brothers for who would become the next ruler. Things were getting very tense. And meanwhile, Rome was beginning to expand in the Eastern Mediterranean. The whole relationship between these two came to a head in the person of Gnaeus Pompeius Magnus, Pompey the Great. Between 66 and 63 BC, Pompey the Great underwent a series of conquests in the Eastern Mediterranean, centered in the area of Turkey and Syria. when he took over the area of Syria, one pretender to the throne of Israel came to him, appealed to him for aid against his brother. Pompey said he would come in and aid against the brother. Then when he found out that the one who was asking him for aid was as corrupt as his brother, he decided that neither one was worthy of the effort, and so he himself took over Israel. This is 63 BC. He went back home, and ultimately the Romans claimed the establishment of two new provinces, the Roman province of Syria, and under the auspices of the Roman province of Syria, a new province called Judea. At this point, the Romans will rule the area. The independent Hasmonean dynasty has come to an end. Now, exactly how will the Romans rule this area? Well, this goes back to Roman habits of ruling provinces more broadly. What the Romans usually do, though I don't have time to go into this in any detail, when the Romans conquer a new province, they don't want to rule it directly. They would rather leave it with a lot of regional autonomy, and therefore the Romans prefer, rather than ruling things themselves, the Romans prefer to have somebody local rule as a king in the name of Rome. We call that a client kingdom. And ultimately, the Romans decided to name as client king a man who is probably well known to many students of the New Testament. His name is Herod. And the Roman province of Judea will now become the client kingdom under Herod and ultimately his sons. This particular slide has a picture of some coins that Herod put out, including his own name. So now the Roman kingdom is, the Hebrew kingdom is now a client kingdom of the Romans. And this relationship brings us to the rather tangled history that surrounds the New Testament.